Today, we are digging into a family history that is absolutely soaked in blood and madness. We're going to trace the dark, twisted roots of the Delapore Dynasty.
These are the desperate, frantic words of the man at the center of our story. Right now, with zero context, it just sounds like the ravings of a lunatic, right? But stick with me, because by the end of this, you'll understand the absolutely chilling truth behind them. And this is where our story ends. Or, well, where it begins for us. We're looking at the last man to ever carry the name Delapore. He's locked away, accused of a crime so vile, so unspeakable, that he can only blame it on vermin that no one else can even hear. So that's the big question, isn't it? How does a perfectly modern, successful American businessman end up here? To get the answer, we have to work backwards. We need to peel back the layers of his life, his family, and, as we'll see, the very ground his ancestral home was built on. Okay, so first up, an American in Exham. We're starting our journey right before everything goes horribly wrong. Before the asylum, before the madness, our guy was simply the last of his line, a modern man looking to reconnect with a very, very ancient past. So here's a quick look at his life. He's born into a respectable Virginia family, makes a fortune up in Massachusetts, pretty standard stuff. But look at 1921. That's the turning point. His only son, Alfred, dies in the war. And that personal tragedy is the catalyst for everything. With his future gone, he throws himself into his family's distant past, buying and moving into the ancient and, as it turns out, very cursed Exham Priory. And this really gets to the heart of his identity crisis. On one hand, you have Delapore, the modern, successful American businessman. But by moving to England, he's trying to reclaim this other name, Delapore. And that name is ancient, noble, and steeped in legends so dark that the local villagers have been whispering about it for centuries. He has absolutely no idea what he's really signing up for. All right, let's jump even further back in time, to the English branch of the family. We're going back centuries now to uncover the truly terrifying reputation of the Delapores of Exham Priory. This quote actually comes from our narrator's own research into his family, and the language here is so important. When he says his ancestors made guys like Gilles de Retz, a real-life 15th century serial killer, look like a total amateur, he's telling us this wasn't just casual evil. This was evil on a horrifying industrial scale. And here are just a few members of this charming family. Gilbert is the first one granted the priory way back in 1261. But then, look who marries into the family. Lady Margaret Trevor becomes a literal boogeyman in children's scary stories. And then there's Lady Mary. Her new husband murders her right after their wedding when he finds out what she's into. And here's the kicker. A priest actually blesses him for the act. The family's evil was so off the charts, even the church was like, yeah, you know what? That murder was justified.
But this cycle of horror wasn't completely endless. See, one man actually tried to stop it. So let's zoom in on him. Walter Delapore, the ancestor who ran away, the one who knew the family's deepest, darkest secret.
What's so fascinating about Walter is that he wasn't one of them. He wasn't a monster. He was described as a shy, gentle youth who just happened to be born into this line of absolute demons. And that contrast just makes the horror he found and what he did about it so much more powerful. So what did this gentle youth do? Well, first, he found the secret. We'll get to what that was in a bit. Second, driven by this terrible discovery, he systematically murdered his entire family to end the bloodline. Third, he fled to Virginia, running from a truth so awful that it was worse than any guilt or any punishment the law could dream up. You know, to the local people, he wasn't a murderer. He was a hero who finally cleansed the land.
Okay, so Walter's bloodline is now in America. He escaped the priory, sure. But the big question is, did he actually escape the curse? Or did that family taint just cross the ocean and, change its shape?
So in Virginia, they become the Delapores. They build a new life on their plantation, Carfax, and they bury their English history completely. The secret was only passed down in a sealed letter from father to son. But that hereditary taint, it still popped up. The narrator's cousin, Randolph, became a voodoo priest. And, even more profoundly, their entire lifestyle as slave owners was just a more civilized, sanitized version of their ancestors' old tradition, raising human beings as livestock.
And this right here, this is the crucial historical accident. When Carfax burned down during the Civil War, it didn't just destroy a building. It destroyed the warning. The one piece of paper that could have screamed, "Stay away from Exham Priory," was gone, turned to ash. And that left our narrator totally in the dark, and completely vulnerable.
With the written history now gone, the only way to find the truth was to, well, to dig. And so we get to the absolute heart of this mystery. Because the curse wasn't just in the family's blood, it was in the land itself. Let's go down, literally, layer by layer, through the foundations of Exham Priory.
So, the top layer is what our narrator sees, right? The Gothic towers of the Delapore barons, the medieval castle that history knows about.
But dig underneath that, and you find much older bones, a Saxon monastery, and it was built on ruins that were ancient even back then.
Deeper still, a Roman temple. But this wasn't for some normal god like Jupiter. No, this was a temple to Magna Mater, Cybele, an ancient primal earth goddess whose followers practiced these frenzied underground rituals.
And finally, you hit bedrock. A massive Twilight Grotto, a cyclopean cave from a time before anyone was writing things down, a place of pure, primal darkness. This is the horrible secret that Walter discovered. The truth is, the Delapore family's evil, it wasn't even original. They were just the latest managers of a multi-millennial cannibalism factory, a human ranch that had been operating on this exact spot since the Stone Age. They didn't start the horror. They just inherited it and, well, perfected it. So how does a modern 20th century businessman fall so far, so fast? The answer is this chilling biological concept, atavism. It's the idea that ancient ancestral traits can suddenly reappear after being dormant for generations. The poisonous influence of the Priory didn't just drive him insane, it literally woke up the monstrous instincts of his cave-dwelling ancestors. The curse was in his DNA the entire time, just waiting for the right place to flip the switch.
And now, let's put it all together. This timeline just shows the staggering scope of it all. This isn't some family curse that's a few hundred years old. No, this is a continuous chain of ritual horror stretching from before recorded history all the way to the Jazz Age. From a prehistoric cult to a Roman temple, through medieval barons, across the ocean to a Virginia plantation, and all the way back to one final, bloody end in 1923.
The authorities actually blew up Exham Priory, dynamited it, hoping to just erase the evil from the earth. But our narrator, locked away in his asylum cell, miles away, he still hears the scurrying. So I'll leave you with this. If you destroy the source, but the echo remains, was the horror ever really in the walls? Or was it in the blood all along, silently passed down generation to generation, just waiting?